Are you making the correct adjustments for the slick on dirt in iRacing? Well, stick around because in this video, I might show you that you are not making the correct adjustments. In fact, I've kind of discovered that the opposite is what we want to be doing. I'll explain what I mean next. Well, what's up, everybody? Thomas Banner here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, we're going to be diving into some adjustments here on the dirt side here in iRacing. Now, keep in mind, I've tested this on pretty much all the dirt cars minus Legends and straight stocks because I don't race those things. I don't mess with them. But late models, Pro and Super, sprint cars, winged 360 and 410, even the non-winged 360, which is what actually kind of kicked this little testing wormhole that I went through. It's kind of what started all of this, even on the dirt midget. So what am I talking about? Well, for the most part, when we make adjustments, if we just talk about this in real life, when you look at a sprint car, as the race goes on or as the event goes on and the track slicks off, you'll hear about adjustments that they're going to make to basically give the car more drive. They're going to hook it up more. You know, things like decrease the stagger, take some rebound out of the front shocks, obviously increase wing angle, maybe move the wing back more, soften the rear bars, raise the front, all these different things that are kind of just seen as, like just the norm. After the update that we've had here on dirt this season, and I talked about this, how the cars have definitely got more grip on the tack, it seems like when the track slicks off now, you actually want to kind of do the opposite, really in particular with the wing sprint cars and the late models. Because the aero is now becoming more and more of a factor with these cars, more prevalent, and that's only going to increase more and more as iRacing gets better and better with this stuff. Like I said in the dirt video, we don't have dirty air yet, but I imagine one day that will come. But regardless, with the wing sprint cars, for example, you can really lock these cars down now with the wing. The problem is if you lock them down with the wing in the feature while also making a bunch of mechanical adjustments, right? Wheel spacing, stagger, all these other things to really hook the car up, you're going to get out there and find that the car is going to handle like crap. In fact, it's going to be to where you are going to be so tight or so hooked up that you're going to have to just drive the crap out of it just to get it to turn out to be like hammered down. Now, there are people out there who can do this. If you're one of them pros, it's like, hey man, I can just hold it wide open and just stuff that thing into the corner and run it 6 inches off the wall all the way around the track. Congrats to you. This video isn't going to help you. But for the rest of us mere mortals, right, who are just worried about keeping the car straight and hooked up, that is not what we want, right? We want to be able to really drive the car, have it handle. If we have a car next to us, right, you don't want to have to be worrying about, man, I got to really like turn this thing, crank this thing in to get it into the corner. Otherwise, it's not going to turn. It's just going to push and all these other aspects. So I've been testing with this a lot. This all started with the wing or the non-wing 360 where I was doing some testing and I was like, man, I kind of want to loosen this up more for the feature, because as we get to a slick track, you're losing so much drive with these cars and they don't have the aero, obviously they don't have a wing to really give them that forward bite. You want to increase the forward bite, but you're also having to slow down so much because the track's slicking off. It makes it to where the car doesn't want to turn. So I started kind of doing the opposite with certain adjustments, not all adjustments. This is a really important part. So certain things I would actually do the opposite. So instead of decreasing wheel spacing, I would increase the wheel spacing and increase the stagger while making adjustments to help with the forward bite. So for example, softening the rear bars. And this made a huge difference, like a huge difference. Now the car had the forward drive, but it also had that handling capability, which I wanted. I could roll off the throttle, still get it into the corner without having to like just muscle it in there and then, hope that it wasn't going to snap loose on me. So when I did that with the non-wing, I started testing this theory with the wing sprint car and the late models. And lo and behold, I had similar results. So I'm going to head over to the track here. We're going to take a look at this. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right, so let's head over to the track and have a look. All right, so I've got the Wing 360 loaded up here. We're at Williams Grove. 100% track, completely slicked off. Now, keep in mind, this is pre-gen, so obviously it's not the same as a dynamically run-in track, but I have tested those in the practice sessions and things like that. So this is still applicable, okay? And keep in mind, when I talk about these adjustments, I'm not telling you this is the end-all be-all, as in from now on slick tracks, these are the adjustments you want to make. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't look at the conventional wisdom that we've looked at for so long, where it's like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z when the track slicks off to be fast. Really start looking at things differently out of the box, because with the cars the way they are right now, I don't think there's ever been a time on the sim that I know of, or that at least I can remember, where the target for your setup is really huge, meaning that you could have something completely different than 10 other drivers, and all of you can go out and be extremely fast, because it all boils down to keeping the car straight, keeping it hooked up, and racecraft, right? Really making sure that you're out there doing what you need to do. Yes, it helps track positions, obviously helps in qualifying, getting up front, all those things are a factor, but it's being able to race the car and do it comfortably matters so much more than I remember it mattering, in terms of like, oh man, I missed my setup, I'm screwed. That's not really the case anymore. So when we would do like a slick setup, right? If we're going from tacky to slick. So let's just say we had our tacky setup, and I'll just say this is it right here. We got our tacky setup, obviously no wing angle. And now the track is slicked off. What would we normally do? Well, normally what we would do is we would do something like, well, let's raise the front end up a little bit. Okay. Let's make sure that these shocks are, easy up shocks. We got little rebound there. Might take some rebound out of the left rear shock, maybe even go down to a 7 on the rebound. Increase the packer on the left rear. Definitely move the right rear spacing in. Maybe even move the left rear out more. And instead of keeping the wing at 22, we'd probably just increase it, right? Maybe we'd go to like a 27. Okay, we've got this would be our qualifying stagger or tacky track, so we would go down to like 11. Okay, and then we'd even probably go to a taller gear ratio, so we could reduce wheel spin. All right, and we'd probably soften our rear bars too. Maybe add some turns to it, but for the most part, right, this would be something similar to what we would do, right? Obviously, there's extremes to this and different variations, but overall, that's what we would do. And when we come out here onto the track, we go out here and we're going to run. And even though they're still tacky here, look, when we hit the throttle, the thing just goes straight. Can't really roll off and turn it in, right? You got to like really drive it hard to get it to turn. This is definitely one of those tracks where I'd be using brake to wing it over. Even when I'm picking up the throttle, it's not really wanting to rotate. We got it so tight just so we can get that forward drive. All right, let's try the bottom. Which I completely missed there. Overshot it there. All right, but there you go. That'd be kind of our typical setup, and basically, you know, we'd make some adjustments to it, but usually you're going to be somewhere in that ballpark. You might be, like I said, variations of it, but that's kind of how you're going to tighten up the car from your qualifying heat race setup, right? And I've done this for a very long time. You look at insider setups, you're going to notice that I'm going to be doing similar things, right? I might be doing it more or less at certain tracks. There might be different variations of it, but for the most part, that's what you're doing. Now, let's just do something completely different, okay? So instead of decreasing our stagger, let's actually increase it. We're going to go to 14. I'm going to actually take these turns out of the front end. Okay, we're going to leave the wing at 27. So there's no changing this, because obviously I could change the wing angle and make this thing handle very, very differently. But we want to have the wing angle. We want to be able to actually move it back some, because that's what's going to really hook the car up. That's what's going to lock it down and give us that forward drive that we're looking for. We just don't want to have it locked down so much that the thing won't turn, okay? So I'm going to actually move my right rear out. Let's actually go out to 18. I'm going to increase the left rear rebound. Here on the right rear, I'm going to actually kind of lock that right rear down too. Here on the front, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to actually probably we'll go 3.5 over 4.5 on the right front. And then we'll do probably like 3.5 on the left front. Actually, no, what we'll do is we'll go thousands on the front, 975s on the rear, but I'm going to take a half a turn out of both fronts. And then we'll just go, let's go 1 turn on the left rear and 2 turns on the right rear. That'll help the car rotate a little bit more. And like I said, we got the maxed out stagger. We'll leave the rest of the stuff alone, okay? Now, let's go out. Let's try this again. Now, notice how much easier this thing's getting into the corner. And because of that, I'm able to keep the car much straighter and smoother. We haven't lost any of our forward drive down the straightaway. I'm still having to pedal the car so we're not spinning the tires. The other setup, I can actually move this wing back a click, maybe even 2. The other setup, we couldn't do that because the car wouldn't turn if we did that. We would have to literally break the car loose to turn it. Now I can move this wing back and get some more forward drive and not lose my turning capability. Go to the bottom. See how much easier I was able to get that thing to rotate the bottom there? I didn't get it opened up enough there on my entry. As you can see, much easier to drive. Much easier to drive. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Tommy, it might be easier to drive, but dude, how much slower were you? How much wheel spin did you have? Well, let's just take a look here at our laps. 19.8, 19.5, 19.5. Those were on the bottom, right? 19.5 on the bottom. We had another 19.5 on the bottom. 19.6 when I missed the bottom. 19.9, 19.9 on the top. We had a 22. We had a 23. So lap times are similar, but I'm far more comfortable with the car like this, which when you are racing on the track with other people for 30 laps, that's what you want. It doesn't matter what your fastest lap is. Anyone can go out and turn one fast lap. You got to go out there and do it for a race. And the first thing that you need to be able to do is be consistent. And to be consistent, you need to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to be consistent. I'm using myself as an example. There, like I said, there are others out there who can do it. I'm not one of them. And if you're not one of them, you might want to try, a little bit more comfortable setup. So the reason I'm showing you this here on the sprint car is, like I said, don't think you have to go the conventional wisdom route of saying, well, hey, this is what everybody does, so this is what I'm going to do. Go out on the slick and actually just build your setup. When I do the insider stuff now, I actually am working myself backwards. I'm starting off with the slick setups, building those, and then going and making the qual setup. That's what I'm doing now. And there's times where you might look at the qual setup and then look at the feature setup. You're like, dude, are these even the same setups? Like, is this for the same track? Because they're so different. But keep in mind, in real life, that's something that you deal with as well. There's times where you might go to the track, and I've talked to real life crew chiefs, drivers about this. You can go to the track and you got your car locked down for qual. Dude, for the heat race, that car can be completely different. It's going to have different spacing, different stagger, different bars, turns in different places, because unless you're starting up on the front row and you got all the clean air, guess what? Now you got to be able to turn that thing in dirty air. We don't have that in the sim. We don't have dirty air, but it still is the same principle. Being able to race that car and do it comfortably, you got to be able to do that. And if you go out there and you just make the same old adjustments thinking like, hey, this is what you got to do, and you're not comfortable, it's going to be an issue. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, like, Tommy, that's the wing sprint car. Whatever. I don't drive those. Well, let's take a look at the late models, because I think you're going to be surprised at that. All right, so now I've got we're super late models. We're at Knoxville, 100% track. Once again, it's pre-gen, I know, but it's 100% track. It's slicked off. All right, this is definitely be one of those situations where feature time, we're going to be doing, if you ever make late model setups or adjust the setups, you know what we're going to do. We're going to, ton of left rear bite. Let's take a look here. We're going to decrease the stagger. We're going to put a ton of left rear bite in it. Left rear upper trailing arm is going to go up. The right rear is going to go down. We're going to take the spring split out of it. A lot of times we're going to usually drop the J bars pretty much all the way down. There are situations where we would run for example, I would run the left rear higher, but that's what we're doing. Ballast is all the way back to get as much rear bite as we can. Axle lead, ton of axle lead, trying to keep the car as straight as possible. Okay, so this is what we would do, and the car's super tight. Now, really quick, there are situations where you're going to want to do this. This is, like I said earlier with the sprint cars, I'm not saying you should never make these adjustments. There are tracks like Cedar Lake, for example, is one of those tracks where it can slick off literally from bottom to top, and you're just going to be pedaling through the middle of it. Lanier is another one that can happen with the late models. So in situations like that, yeah, man, set up like this is what you want, because you're trying to keep this thing just as straight as possible. You're going to be in the slick. You know it's going to be getting loose just from the slick. And so you're trying to just max out your forward bite, keep it straight. But other tracks, like a Knoxville, for example, it can sometimes get hairy, especially if you're trying to put this thing up on the wall or on the cushion. Now here we've still got quite a bit of tacky dirt for 100% track, but you can see right there how tight it is. I mean, it just like doesn't want to turn. I'm kind of having to blip the throttle to get the thing to rotate. I mean, it's not bad. But you can see right there, it's really tight. Like if you don't drive it in super hard, it's really tight. That right there, we just clipped the wall with our right rear. That's why we push. So that's not from the setup, that's just from hitting the wall. But that corner's a little better. As you can see, we're having to really break it loose to get the thing to kind of rotate because it's so hooked up, it's so tight. And then on the bottom, it's not too bad on the bottom, but one of the reasons it's not too bad is the fact that the rear tires are basically in the slick on the entry. So that's definitely helping it rotate. But there will be those situations like I talked about when you're racing, you've got somebody outside of you, you're trying to get inside of them, and now you're trying to get down here and make it turn, and it's pushing. And so, you know, we always don't have that ability to just kick the rear end or blip the throttle and break it loose, you know, to get it in the corner. All right, so here, it's not horrible, it's not too bad. But let's just make some changes to this setup, all right? So if we get this, because I've already got one basically done up here, loose. Now, keep note, 215 pounds to the left rear, okay? We have 215 pounds of left rear bite. I want to make sure you see that that's the same, because left rear bite is our dig. That's what's going to give us our drive. The right rear is going to really turn the car with, you know, on throttle. The left rear is what's giving us that drive. So if we go to loose, we're at 214. Okay, we could actually make it to 18. We'll make it more. The axle lead, instead of being positive 3/16, we're going to go negative 2/16. We dropped the left rear trailing arm to 24, got the right rear at 26. So instead of 16, we got it at 26. We moved it up 10 degrees. The J-bar, we actually raised it up from 15 to 18.5. The rear's at 15. Okay, and then everything else is the same. All right. Oh, and stagger, we went to 5 inches. So we added 1.5 inches of stagger, okay? So now let's see how this thing does. So definitely turns into the corner much easier. Still gets good drive off the corner, as you can see. But you can see there, we could turn it in so much easier. We could actually get up higher on the entry and drive it in straighter because we didn't have to really break the rear end loose to get it into the corner. See how much easier that goes into the corner? So much easier and straighter. And it's much more, much easier to drive. I can just turn it in. We go to the bottom here. Turns in nice and easy. You can just roll the bottom, even when I hit the berm like that. Look at how much easier that thing just turns in. Even when I miss the bottom, front tire's in the slick, it still turns. And we're still getting the full throttle on the straightaways because we still got good enough forward drive to where we can get the throttle down. I mean, that last lap, you probably didn't hear it, but that was the fastest lap of the session. We're just rolling bottom. As you can see, much easier to drive. Much easier. All right? And I'm not trying to change your mind and make you do completely the opposite of what you've been doing. That is not the goal of this video. The goal of this video is to just say, hey, instead of doing what we've always done or what conventional wisdom says we should do with the adjustments, try something else. Try going against the grain. Try doing the opposite of what you would normally do, because I think you'll be surprised at the results that you'll get, and not only the results, but how much better the car will feel in the process. All right, you guys, so that's going to do it. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. Like I said, just to recap, I'm not trying to make it to where it's like, hey, don't do what you've been doing. Don't do, because look, this goes against a lot of the stuff that I've been teaching for a very long time. Those principles still maintain. Like when we look at the late model, for example, we still had a ton of left rear bite. You still want the forward drive, but instead of locking down the car in every single aspect of it with the adjustments, we're going to go from, I don't know what my left rear bite is for my heat setup, but let's just say if we're going to go from 80 pounds to 215 pounds, instead of also tightening up the trailing arms, the J-bar, the axle lead, the shocks, and the springs, maybe we'll, just add some left rear bite. Maybe we might loosen up the car in a couple of different aspects to help it handle and turn a little bit easier, right? That's all I'm saying. Just try a couple of different things, because I think you'll be surprised at the results that you will have. And don't be afraid to go against the grain. I have people who literally message me all the time, and they'll say, hey, I know I should be making these adjustments when, the track is more of an asphalt thing, but hey, I know when the track heats up, I should be making these adjustments. And I do, and the car isn't working. In fact, not only is it not working, but it is going the opposite of what it should be. Why is that? Well, then I look at their telemetry, or I watch a video, and it's like, well, hey man, the track heated up 15 degrees than your test session. You tighten the car up way too much. What you're doing is you're actually having to crank the wheels so much to get it turn. You're breaking it loose. You actually want to back that down some. Instead of increasing your cross weight 2.5%, try going 0.5% or 1%. And instead of also softening the rear springs and doing all these, why don't you make one adjustment, right? Tone it down some. And when I started playing around with this stuff, like I said, on the dirt side, it really opened my eyes, because like I said, there's a lot of stuff that I do myself. I mean, you see on the Insider setups, you'll notice it, where I do those things. Increase the wing, move it back, at wheel spacing, stagger, shot, all that stuff. And now it's like, man, I can actually play with this a whole lot more, make the car much more comfortable, and it still be fast. And that's the key, right? That's the key. It's one thing to have a comfortable car that's hella slow, but if you can have a comfortable car that's still fast, that still gets grip, that still has traction, and you guys keep in mind, I've tested all this stuff with my Motec. I've looked at the data, and it's there. I wouldn't be showing you this if it wasn't. The traction numbers are still good. Everything's still good. And for me, it was really eye-opening. And that's why I wanted to share this with you, because I still get a lot of questions all the time about setups and adjustments. And now you can go out and you can take a setup and, make only a couple of changes, right? I mean, you've got a wing sprint car setup. If you've got a base setup at a track that you really like, now for the feature, instead of changing 7 things, maybe now you don't even need to make a couple. You don't even need to change the stagger or the wheel spacing. Maybe you leave those the same and you just add a little bit of wing angle and then put a couple of turns in the car to compensate, and bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. So I really just wanted to share this with you so you can kind of, think outside the box, open your mind up to some different ideas, and I'm hoping this helps you do that. So, anyways, you guys, that's going to do it. Thank you very much. Apologies for the barking dog that you hear right now. I've got the fan in my window because it still gets warm in this office even though it's fall, and the neighbor's dog won't shut up. So apologies for that if you can hear that, and also apologies for the fans if you hear those. But I hope this video helps you guys. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I know it's been a while since my last video. I'm trying to get to doing these more frequently now that I stopped doing the podcast and stuff like that. So hopefully I'll be getting back to a more consistent schedule. I do have some stuff that I'm planning here for the end of this year. And I know we're almost to the end of the year, but we've had a lot of people who signed up on the list on our website, schoolismracing.net, that that they want to do, you know, a master class. I kind of asked, hey, if you're interested in master classes, let me know. We had a bunch of people who signed up for that, and so I'm going to be putting together setup master classes for the sprint cars, the late models, and then, you know, the NASCARs, the truck, the Xfinity, and maybe even the late model stock. I'm thinking about, but I'm going to be putting together master classes for all those here over the next, I don't know, you know, month and a half, 2 months. So if you're interested in those, or any of the other stuff that we have to offer at School of Sim Racing, because we do have a ton of free stuff on the website. We're looking to add more. We got people working on it right now. Head over to schoolofsimracing.net. You can also join the SSR community, which is just awesome, and we have a ton of really cool stuff that we're doing right now. If you've seen any of our No Limit League racing and things like that, so links for all that stuff down in the description below. But you guys, that'll do it. Thank you very much as always for joining me. Until next time, I want to wish you good luck, good racing,